Hi, everyone. First time we're doing this here on Beyond the 90. I think if this works, we're going to do more videos because Substack has added a video feature. They've added a Substack live feature. I've been watching some of Chris Saliza's videos. He's a political commentator, but also talks about soccer a fair amount, right? I know he's a Premier League fan and recently wrote a great essay on college soccer. Wanted to mention the FA Cup. The FA Cup third round weekend is my favorite weekend in all of sports, any American sport, any world football, because it is very much about non-league teams, lower division professional teams facing the big boys and being able to host matches and being able to fight and play for replays. But the Premier League, in its infinite greed in the last several years, much like what MLS has tried to do to the U.S. Open Cup, and once MLS got away with that, the Premier League began doing the same thing to the FA Cup, making changes that would benefit its business, not caring about the old adage of solidarity, which is a big part of football, which is money flows down the pyramid, which is you take care of the club, whether it's you take care of everybody in your football system, in your football pyramid, whether it's a 10th division club with part-time players or whether it's a club owned by a nation state like Manchester City is, or by American industrialists and hedge fund managers, which we see with Chelsea and Arsenal and Manchester United, etc. The FA Cup still had this meritorious feel. It still had this egalitarian feel. You would get these David versus Goliath matchups. Well, we just had one of those. This morning. Tamworth with part-time players, guys who are plumbers, guys who are auto mechanics, playing mighty Tottenham Hotspur, whose owners Joe Lewis and Daniel Levy it seems like they own half my state, right? They own it. They're some of the biggest real estate developers here in Florida. They own Spurs. They own Tottenham. And Tamworth fought Spurs at their home ground with a beat up pitch, with the whole town coming out to a draw. That would have been the story in previous FA Cups, and they get a replay, which will be at White Hart Lane, and or whatever the name of the new Tottenham stadium is, and they'll get a huge payday out of it, and that will sustain the club for the next 5 years because of the money they'll make from that replay, even though they'll lose the replay in all likelihood. No. Now, instead, we have a match that goes to extra time where you have part-time amateur players playing against a multi-billion-pound professional squad. Of course, in extra time, Spurs are going to score 3 goals. Of course, they're going to win the match. Of course, they're going to move on to the 4th round. And of course, little Tamworth is not going to get their just payday, which will sustain the club for the next several years, as I said. The way the FA Cup has changed, I think the precedent was set by MLS with the U.S. Open Cup. Once MLS got away with messing with the domestic cup competition here in the States, because the Premier League owners are Americans. So many of the Premier League owners have the same sort of aversion to risk in some regards that the MLS owners have. Not universally, right? There are a lot of Premier League owners that are, they really understand the risk. They understand the risk of relegation. They understand the risk of offending supporters. They understand the supporters' culture. They understand this stuff. But instead, Spurs get 3 goals in extra time, which they were always going to get since we got rid of the replays in the 3rd round. And they're moving on. Now, football is about supporters. I'm not sitting here getting ready to watch Barcelona and Real Madrid. I probably won't watch the match. I don't drool over, Messi and Ronaldo. Look, football to me is very much about supporters. It's very much about culture. It's very much about community. That is what has sustained the sport outside of the top clubs in Europe for the last 100 plus years. Small clubs, community, supporters groups, making friendships, the community being behind the club. And the supporters culture is why I love football. And why I'm a football man, and why American professional sports don't appeal to me. Community-based clubs, meritocracy, local rivalries, local derbies, you being able to be at Forest and look across the river and you see Notts County. You know, you be able to walk from where Port Vale plays to where Stoke City plays. You have a ground share with AC Milan and Inter Milan. I mean, this is what football is about, right? Rayo Vallecano, a plucky neighborhood club, beating Real Madrid. That is what football is about in a neighborhood in London. QPR from Shepherd's Bush beating Arsenal, right? That is what football is about. We're losing the soul of the game. My favorite weekend in sports, the FA Cup third round weekend, was a letdown this year because of all the changes made to the tournament, to the competition. I quite frankly don't care. Like the fact that Premier League and Championship squads have for years rotated, managers have rotated their squads, didn't bother me because it was still the FA Cup. It was still the magic of the cup. But that magic is really fading.